welcome to Stories from the Red Couch. This is episode 15. It's still storming, and I've got Elizabeth Craig Holmes on the I was going to say on the table, on the chair. We might dance on the table later, but not right now. First of all, we're going to sit on the couch and have a chat. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Not much point in being any other.
No. Well, if you've got a choice around these things, then that's definitely what you're going to choose, isn't it?
Life is about choices.
Yeah. And what I haven't been to one yet, but I just so love your concept of plate to paddock. I saw that on one of your videos, and you describe it to me.
Well, you know how the restaurants talk about paddock to plate, and they're taking the food from the paddock to the plate in their restaurants?
Yes.
Well, we actually reverse that, and we actually take the people and the plates to the paddock where the food is from.
That's brilliant.
So we set up a long table, just like a restaurant table, white cloths, etc. And then we invite the guests. And we have 5-course meals with matching wines. And the interesting thing is that...
You have to come.
It's very nice.
Yes.
The interesting thing about that is that our menu changes every time, because we create the menu around the produce on that farm, and then we bring in other produce from local producers. We get a local winery if it's possible. It's not always possible. Or, for example, the one in March, which is going to be Taste of Australia with the Indigenous chef, Dale Chapman.
Oh, how fabulous.
We're actually going to have wine, and also Martin from Palmwood's, the Sunshine Coast cider.
Oh.
He's going to put some cider in at the reception. So it's really fascinating because we get an opportunity to actually talk with the farmers, and you know, they're sometimes forgotten in this whole process of food. And it's just wonderful to meet these people. They are just so quiet, they're usually gentle, they're just passionate about what they do. The rain is always good or bad depending on when the produce
Harvest is coming in.
Harvest.
Yes.
Mind you, I always have a look like this when it's time to set up and there's rain coming.
Oh, yes.
Do we go to the barn, or do we stick it out and see how we go?
Yes.
But it's actually a wonderful day. I meet such beautiful people. That's guests, that's producers, it's winemakers, and even the people we work with are just delightful.
It's such a lovely gathering of the whole process of food, isn't it?
Yeah, because we actually do a communal style lunch, so it's served on platters. So there's a platter to every 6 people, so someone's got to play mum.
Yes.
And that's yet another way to share this meal. And it just brings people together. And then you end up with lots and lots of laughter, which is really, really, really good. So I suppose one of the interesting things about it is that it's like moving house, because we go to a different property all the time. We have to pack everything up into our trailer, trucks and everything else that we have to tow and take to the place and get it there. So it's like moving house. And you know how they say moving house is really stressful? Well, the last one was pretty stressful, but I lived and survived, so that's okay.
I can imagine that your packing boxes are really something special, though. Are they?
Oh, yeah, it's like, yes, another box and another box and another box, and then
You have to be so organised.
But we've also built a purpose kitchen which drops down, and then we put it up there when we get there, and we've got hot and cold running water. We have to have everything organised in order to make food safety
Of
necessary.
course. So you're cooking on site. It's not being cooked somewhere and then brought and then served.
Our licence is that we have to absolutely do everything on site. So the chef, when we use them, it's like, well, here we go, first day before, he's doing all his prep. And on the day, he's doing prep and serving. So absolutely everything is done on the property. Except for the likes of when we have someone like Dale.
Yes.
She will do her prep off-site because she has an off-site catering licence.
Okay.
And then she will just come and do the final amount of prep and the serving. I think it's interesting though, because when we do it our way, it really tests the chef, and our chef is extremely good and very patient.
That's good.
Me not being a cook, I mean, I only married 2 men, and both times I said, I don't cook. I didn't say I couldn't cook, I said I don't cook.
There is a difference,
There is a difference. But you wouldn't want me to be cooking either. I'm fine when it's just simple little things.
Sure.
He's really good. He's able to sit down and talk with us and the producer and say, okay, this is the product we've got. How can we come up with something really unique? And so every lunch, it's a new menu, which is very different to a restaurant which has 4 walls. They usually have a menu, and then it sits there for, let's say, 2-3 months, seasonal probably. Whereas every one of ours is very different, so you can't eat your way through the menu with ours.
What has been your, and I know it's going to be like asking who your favourite child is and you're not allowed to have one, what has been your favourite dish that you've eaten at one of your events?
At our launch, our chef Sean, he did a smoked duck breast. Oh, and it was from Bendale Farm, and it was just perfect. Just perfect.
And how many people come along to these long table lunches?
Well, because we're only new, like we only started in March and we've just done our 3rd long lunch. We had 54 at the first one and we had 36 at the last one. And I'm pretty happy with that.
I mean, 36 for lunch.
5 courses, matching wines.
I think that's enough. Really,
Well,
in
no,
some
no,
ways. Okay, no, it's not enough. All right.
The long-term goal is 199.
Holy cow.
Because if we go to 200, it's a whole different issue with insurances and everything else. But the objective is to eventually get to 199. Because it'd be just amazing.
It would be amazing. Look, you're right. You're quite right. That would be astonishing.
We'd have more than one chef, though.
I think you'd have to. And what's the venue for the next one?
The next one is going to be Changing Habits Farm at Mullaney, and that's in March next year.
Okay.
And we have places coming up, like we've got a coffee plantation coming up, we've got a lime finger coming up, we've got a beef place coming up, and also your Monday markets is actually talking to us at the moment about doing one too.
At the market. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
So, yeah, there's lots of things happening.
Yes.
We just put them up as we want, because if we don't spread them out too far, people sort of say, oh, I want to go to that one, I want to go to that one, and then you end up with 2 on that one and 4 on that one.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Now,
Plus we need to grow gently. You don't want to grow quickly.
Well, you need to be testing your capacity to sort those boxes out. And that's a lot of boxes already that you're having to cart around. If it's a 5-course meal, it's a different plate for every...
No.
Okay. So
this is communal meal.
Okay.
So they'll have a main plate which goes through the main courses 2 to 4.
Okay.
And then a dessert plate.
Okay.
And the reception also. So that's about the same as you would do at home.
Yes.
And it does require less plates to take other than backup plates.
That's good.
Yeah. But my lounge room at the moment is just boxes at the moment because, yeah.
It's astonishing what we do to do this work.
Yeah.
You haven't, I mean, you've said that you're just new to the business and you've only been running 18 months? Is that what you said?
No, March.
Oh, March.
March this year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What did you do before that? You've actually got you've had a kaleidoscopic career, haven't you? You've done so much.
Well, I started life at the Redcliffe Aero Club, and that was really interesting because they used to teach people to fly, and the students would come in and they would say, would you like to come up with me? And I say, oh no, it's okay, it's fine, thanks. However, if my boss, who was ex services, he took me up in a chipmunk and we did aerobatics, and that was amazing, absolutely amazing. And then I went into the hardware and plumbing business because my family's from that background, and Keith, my first husband, his family was from plumbing and hardware. And then it just keeps rolling from there. So I eventually ended up vocational education. And just because I ran a hardware store and gangs of plumbers, they thought I could teach retail. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And Tony's saying, yes, you can do this. And I'm going, really? Really? So
I guess that you could.
well, I ended up there doing it, but it was interesting. But I eventually, I have always said, you know, this uni is, they're not practical. They don't know what practical is.
Yes.
They're all theory-based. They've never been out there and done that. And so I fought this and I fought this, and then I eventually said, oh, I think I might do a vocational education and workplace learning degree. And Tony went, really? And so I ended up doing uni, and I did a distance education. I did uni of Tasmania. And I kept fighting this system. That doesn't work, that doesn't work. And Tony kept saying, just give them what they want, darling.
Yes.
Just give them what they want. And you go, but it doesn't work. Just give them what they want.
And did you? Did you give them what they
Oh,
wanted?
yes, after a lot of fighting and beating and knocking my head against a brick wall. But, you know, it was really, really good, because I had an old friend who was ex-principal, and he said, look, you've just got to remember, they just teach you to think and process. That's it. I said, no, okay. And it was really, really good, because I went on and did an honours degree, and that was really fascinating. Not many people get fascinated by assessment, but I do.
Yeah.
Because if you can't assess someone's being competent, what's the point in being able to?
So do you think that there's been, in this new business, people, plates and places, what have you brought from all of those experiences to this business then?
Well, it doesn't matter what we do.
Yeah.
There is always an educational subconscious base with it. And part of that base is that when we do people, plates and places, we take the farmer or the winemaker or the cider maker around and introduce them to the guests. And people get to interact with them and learn why did they get into this. And sometimes it's as simple as, I was sick, I decided to go organic growing. And then they ask, well, what did you do that was different? So it's really got this sub-level of education under it. And I suppose the interesting part, just deviating from there, is that when you go to council and you say, look, this is what we do, we don't actually fit into a pigeonhole.
No.
So when you don't fit into a pigeonhole, they go, what do we do with this woman? And so, you know, you're very passionate about what you're doing, but what do we do with you? So pigeonholes we don't fit into, because we do the educational process, we do the whole food experience process. And, you know, the other thing that we do, because of our nature and our background, is we work collaboratively. So when we run these, we don't want anyone to be disadvantaged by it. We don't expect people to give free food, but we would like it at wholesale prices. But in that process, we also go and we just pummel our Instagram and Facebook. We're not so good on Facebook. We're getting better. We pummel those with those people, and we promote them and we put it out there so that they get just as much publicity as we do. So we try to have this collaborative approach to what we're doing. Not everybody copes with that, but that's our objective, and that's our nature.
And it was difficult, wasn't it, to get through council? And we don't have to go into the nitty-gritty of it, but I remember at the time when you were going through that...
Me going...
Yes, I recognise that face.
The face.
But it was really challenging, because it was really quite completely different to what anybody else was doing.
And I have to say, you know, the health people have been extremely helpful. The event people have been absolutely wonderful. And to deal with them, they've been really, really good. And they put up with me saying, but why? But why? But why? How does that make it different? But, you know, some parts of council are interesting, but that's life. And, you know, when you get a picture in your head which says this is what I want to do. You can't understand why it can't happen. And of course you've got the liquor licensing side as well. Why can't this happen? There's a level of desire and determination that sort of goes, well, there must be a way to fix this. There must be a way to get around it. And that's more about, I think, helping people understand what it is we're trying to do. And quite honestly, we have a market food license, and our market food tent would be a hell of a lot better than some I have seen doing off-site catering.
Yes.
So, you know, we are happy to do that because we are determined to do it right, and my parents always brought me up to do the right thing, even though it meant hitting your head against a brick wall for a little while and bouncing off and then going back and having another shot at it.
What sort of things do you need to look at if you're going to a farm and to evaluate if it's suitable for 198 people?
Yes.
What are you looking for in a farm like that?
Well, one, we want to see a farm that is productive. We partner with the Chemical Free Farmers Association because that has to be one of the ways to go.
Yes.
Organic farming is really important, but it's really hard and really expensive to get certification. And Dave Jarrett and the Sustainable Soil crew, and even Scott Robinson with his holistic farming procedures, you know, they're doing a marvellous job to make sure that this food is of good value, good nutrition. So we'll go to a farm and we have a chat with the farmer and we just get a feel for what they're trying to do and whether we can make this lovely collaborative arrangement happen. The other thing we like to look for is, you know, it'd be great to get a sunset because everybody loves a sunset.
Everyone loves a sunset.
But it's not always possible.
Yes.
But provided, you know, if you've got a nice view, and if you think about it, our tent's about 50 metres away from the table. So our wait staff have to get their skates on and they have to be pretty full on. But you don't want any noise. They just need to sit out in this paddock with peace and quiet and some birds. And when we went to Blue Dog, the cattle came right up to the tables. Oh, well, not quite to the tables, but close. There was one who liked to escape and had a nibble on the sunshade at one stage, but he was lovely. So we're looking for the farmer first.
Yes.
And what their ideas are about why they're farming. Then we tend to look at what the produce is and how can we use that and how can we actually promote that really well. And then the layout of the farm and the view, because you know people love the views. And you know there's many opportunities. Like, I mean, Tony and I got married at 4:30 in the morning up on the top of one of the Glasshouse Mountains. No one's busy at that time of day, are they?
No.
But that was a great place to have a wedding breakfast.
That's astonishing, Elizabeth. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone having a wedding at 4:30 in the morning
busy.
on top of a mountain.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
In summer. Yeah, in summer?
Yeah. I promised the kids I'd take them to Disneyland in 1990, so that was so they were underage in terms of paying adult fares for airfares.
Yes.
And we made it by about 20 days, and I flew Keith in about 3 weeks after we'd done our bit, and then the kids got another 2 or 3 weeks on top of that, so they got 6 weeks. They did really well out of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, you know, views are important and they make people just chill out a little.
They do.
And it gives a very relaxed atmosphere and people just start to chat and they just start to laugh. It's really quite good.
And so did you tell me where the next... So you've got Dale Chapman.
Dale Chapman, March the 3rd.
Yes. So March the 3rd, Dale Chapman, and where?
And that one's at Changing Habits Farm.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's at Mullaney. I haven't been there. Is that new? Is that...
Changing Habits Farm is owned by Cindy O'Mara and Howard O'Mara. And Scott Robinson is actually in partnership with them about building the farm up to be fully productive.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's a nice spot.
Yes.
And Scott does a marvellous job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. And what sort of food? I mean, I can imagine with Dale, it's going to be a strong Indigenous focus.
Well,
is that right? Or
yeah, it's a tapa style because you do smaller serves because people aren't always quite used to Indigenous foods. But having said that, it's more of an infusion into the modern
of
cuisine.
course, yes.
So there might be little bits of emu or little bits of kangaroo, but nothing that would be put people off for
Sure,
that.
sure.
So consequently, the size of the meals are very different to what we do as normal,
Yes.
and hence the tapa style, and consequently the prices.
I think
not
it's-
so much.
Yeah, so I've actually been talking a lot just lately, completely off camera, around, I was a bit of a pie girl. So I was saying the other day that when Roseland's was the first supermarket in the Southern Hemisphere, I think, and they had a food court, and it was called the World of Food. And it was just this great big square room with, you know, food shops all the way around. I was so not adventurous, and my sister and brother and parents would sort of flit off here and there, and they'd get all manner of things, and I would get a pie,
Yeah.
and it would just have to be a plain meat pie. And if that pie shop wasn't open, my mother didn't tolerate wussiness. I just went hungry because I refused to eat
Eat
anything
anything
else,
else?
and she wouldn't accommodate it.
Yeah.
But in training our palates, so the point of that little story was that I recognised that people really enjoyed a whole range of food, and I didn't, and I was determined to do that. So that small tapas arrangement is ideal for people to try different foods.
I think it's a good way to introduce them because, you know, and everybody else around the table, you know, someone will have it and then someone will say, oh, that's really nice.
Yes.
So the next person will pick it up.
That's right.
Whereas with the normal lunches we run, you know, it's a full meal.
Yes.
And people say, but how could you eat that much in one day? I said, well, it goes for 5 hours.
5 hours?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, if you think about it, you're
Yes.
allowed, 2 glasses in the first hour, 1 glass every hour
Yes,
afterwards, and
yes.
things like that. So unless you've got a driver, which I always suggest someone should be,
Yes.
5 hours, actually, I've had people say, they went really quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine that because I think we don't give ourselves enough time at times to really immerse into an activity like that without the busyness. Oh, we better go and do this, or we better go and do this. But how lovely just to sit for 5 hours with a group of people and eat
Like-minded
and
people.
yes, and eat and chat.
And we also
So
get
nice.
the winemaker to talk about the wine
Yes.
just before we're about to put it out
Yes.
and before the meal's about to be
Yeah.
served. So he's then got an opportunity to talk about why he created this particular wine and how it does go with this particular meal. So we sort of get information from the chef who talks about the meal, we get information from the winemaker who talks about the wine, and at the reception the cider maker will talk about how they got into the cider making. And then that also helps for people to think of questions that they might want to ask when we take them around.
That's wonderful. I think I'll have to come to one of those. How will we find out about it?
If you go to the website,
Yes.
we have a booking page on it, and on there it has all the information of a particular lunch. We've only got the one up at the moment because we're just checking if we're going to, how we're going to do the Monday market one. It's slightly different. I'm still trying to figure out because we need extra time 2 days beforehand, and then we need to be able to pull it down the next day, and they're putting up tents and whatever, so it's about slotting that in. So it's just through all the bookings are done through the website,
Excellent.
and it's very simple, and if you sign up as a subscriber you get 10% off anyway, so
Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
And how have you found the fan network?
Oh, look, Fan is just the best thing out, and the
It's
people
brilliant.
are just so delightful. And if you've got a question, you just ask, and they can help you.
It's certainly good to network into that farming
Oh.
community, isn't it? It's been perfect for that.
Absolutely, and it's like I said, farmers are just the salt of the earth. You know, they're just so giving of everything, and Fan Network is very much the same. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be involved with Fan. Unfortunately, because we're a new startup, it's a bit busy, and we haven't been able to probably do more, but that will come.
I think Fan is there for the long run, though, and
Yes.
I think there'll be plenty of time.
Yeah. I mean, I have also done all my chores in terms of presidents, national presidents and state presidents and everything
Yes.
else, and you sort of get to the point where you say, I think I need a break.
Yes, yes. There's only so many executive roles you can take on.
Yeah, and when you're building a business, it does require considerable effort. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
Fabulous.
I think I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur, so you know, I'm very, very fortunate though. I have 4 people in my life, probably the only ones who actually know me and understand me. I have my daughter who keeps me grounded, and I have Tony, of course, my husband. He's just amazing, and my son, who is even remarkable, and my first husband, Keith, who is just the most beautiful man, and he's just so helpful. Between the 4 of them, they keep me pretty well on the button.
Isn't that wonderful? It's wonderful to have a tight little group.
Oh yeah, and you know, I'm not very good at asking for help, but I ring Keith and say, do you think you could tow the trailer up? And he'll say, yeah, no worries, when you want it.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I guess that you've had to really work at, did you have to work at keeping the relationship with your ex-husband and in your life now?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, when we separated, the key was the kids.
Yes.
Hence the name Craig
Yes.
and Holmes. Keith Craig, Tony Holmes.
Okay.
So that way kids could say, hello Mrs. Craig, or hello Mrs. Holmes, or hello Mrs. Craig Holmes, or absolutely nothing. But it gave them options.
Yes.
And, you know, Keith and I communicated really, really well, and we worked with a diary, so the kids actually had a system of going between houses, and so they had no time longer than 7 days apart from one of the parents, and we worked on a fortnightly basis. And so they have grown up to be very, very independent and just beautiful children. And then when Tony and I got married, and then Keith met Lee, and the 4 of us, we would go out for lunch once a month.
How
And
fabulous.
people go, Paddock? I said, yeah,
That's
that's
great.
okay. And then not recently, but when Mum Craig passed away, someone said to Keith, what's Elizabeth doing up the front there with you? He said, none of your business. So people don't actually
Yes.
cope very well.
And they don't. They have an expectation that it's all going to fall apart
Yeah.
in a screaming heap. And I like to think that these things have ebbs and flows. But if you've got your goals set to remain friends and supportive and so forth, then you weather all of that and you still get to that end.
And the upbringing of the kids is thanks to all 4 of us. So
Yes.
it's really good. Sadly, Lee passed away a couple of years ago, and that's been a bit tragic, and you know, we were really, really sad about that.
Yes.
But he's met someone else, so
That's
that's really
good.
nice, because no one's meant to be by themselves.
That's lovely. It's been so nice to talk to you, Elizabeth.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm definitely going to jump on the website and look at booking a couple of spots,
Excellent.
I guess, at the table for March, 3rd of March. So thank you for watching. I think we're going to have Diane Livingston next, or Kari. We've got a range of people lined up. So watch out for us on Sunday of next week, and we'll be here. It may or may not be raining. It's been raining for weeks now. It just keeps raining.
Beautiful.
It's the Sunshine Coast, and that's what happens here. So thank you very much, Elizabeth.
No, thank you.